When things don't really go your way, you might find yourself responding like most people in one of two ways. Either you blame yourself entirely for the way things turned out, or you blame others. And there are merits and demerits to both, more or less. So in the former case, if you blame yourself entirely, then you're accepting responsibility for your actions, and that's how you learn what to do differently next time to influence a more favorable outcome. But if you do it too much, if you emphasize it too much, and you just can't stop being hard on yourself, then you're probably going to end up very frustrated and angry, and that's not very productive. And the opposite holds true if you're just going to always blame others. You're never going to accept responsibility for your actions. You're never going to learn and grow. You might feel better, but that's also not very productive. So I think that the way you get the best of both worlds is by, of course, taking it on a case-by-case basis, because no two situations are really the same. But the way that I determine how much blame to assign to myself and others is by applying a generic framework that I want to share with you in this video. The first part of the framework is to ask yourself what level of control you had over those things that you think would have led to a better outcome. Because put simply, the less control you have, the less culpable you are, and therefore you're not deserving of as much blame. And the same goes for other people. But at the same time, the more control you have, you are perhaps deserving of more blame depending on, number one, how you exercise that control, and number two, why you exercise it the way that you did. So for example, if you could have put a better effort forth towards something, which is definitely something you can control, and you didn't because you were too lazy or too arrogant or you didn't care or something, then you should definitely accept a lot of blame in that case. But if, on the other hand, you relinquish control over something or you do it differently because you thought it was the right thing to do at the time and you were just acting on the information that you had, then you're deserving of a lot less blame. And of course, you can still note what you can do differently next time, but it doesn't make sense to be hard on yourself. Because in retrospect, now that you know how the story ends, it's always easy to look back and say, I should have known this thing that I know now. But at the time, you didn't know it. And so it's not really fair to have that expectation of yourself. So for example, I've got a friend who's going through a breakup right now. And one of the things that his girlfriend said towards the end was, I don't like the fact that we're not communicating as much and texting as often, so I think we should just go our separate ways. And there were other factors at play, but nevertheless, we were talking about the texting. And of course, his natural response was, had I texted her back more, had I been more responsive, then maybe things would have been different. But at the time, he was just being as responsive as he thought he needed to be. He was trying to do the right thing. It was well-intentioned, and he didn't have the information then that he has now that he knows how the story ends. And so it's not really fair for him to have that expectation of himself. The next piece of this is to ask yourself if things really would have been that much better had you done something different. And even if that were the case, would you really be that much happier with the outcome? And I would argue that 9 times out of 10, the answer to both of those is no. It's just that most people want to believe the answer is yes because it makes them feel good, and it's very easy to romanticize the past, especially when you don't have any evidence to prove yourself wrong. So let's revisit the breakup example. Had my friend texted his girlfriend more, would they still be together? I mean, probably not. She'd probably find a different reason to break up with him. But nevertheless, let's just assume that the answer is yes. So would that make him happy? I mean, if they were still together, I don't think that you would want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't value you more than some simple text messages, somebody who could break up with you over something that simple. Let's take another example. One thing I really blame myself for is the fact that I didn't take advantage of the opportunities I had in high school to forge more relationships with people, because there were a lot of people that were interested in me. And so I look at that and I say, had I done that, then things would have been so much better. I probably would have even found someone to marry and started a family by now. But would that really have been the case? I mean, probably not. We probably could have gotten to college and then broken up. Or we could have stayed together and then found that we had nothing in common and things wouldn't have worked out and I wouldn't have been happy. So it doesn't really make sense to blame yourself for something when it wouldn't have led to a different outcome. And even if it would, it wouldn't have really made you that much happier. So don't be so quick to assign blame either to yourself or to others, because sometimes one person might be more culpable than the other. Other times you might be equally as responsible. And even so, it might not be anybody's fault. It might be out of both of your hands. So in the breakup example, maybe my friend and his girlfriend were equally as culpable, but at the end of the day, you can't blame somebody for not being attracted to you. So check out my videos on hope, regret, and should you show emotion if you haven't already, because those are very relevant to this. With that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.